On this episode of Another Zelda podcast, Kate and David compile a list of their 8 favorite items from any game in the series.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of Another Zelda podcast. I am one of your hosts, Kate Fischer, and I am here with my partner in crime and video games, David Geisler. How are you?
Oh, hi, Kate. I like that. partner in crime and video games. That's not bad.
Uh-huh. And podcasting, I guess. Too. So anyway, what we are doing for this episode, I was looking forward to this one. We are going to be talking about our favorite items from multiple Legend of Zelda games. I was tasked, this was your idea, to find or to think of my 4 favorite items from the Legend of Zelda games. Make sure they are
like specialty items, like the kind of items you often get from a dungeon or something.
Yeah, and make sure we did not pick more than one from the same game.
Well, okay, so what I said was like, what if we each pick 4?
Right.
Let's not tell each other.
Right.
And let's find out together on the show what these items might be, and that'll build a list of 8.
Yes. Maybe 8. I feel like we're gonna have.
We might have some repeats.
I'm
not sure.
So. I think so, because I feel like I know what one of yours is going to be. But we're going to go back and forth.
We'll find out.
From our least favorite to our most favorite.
Well, how about this? I have some honorable mentions from listener feedback, and we'll fill in with those then if you and I do have some repeats.
If and when.
I have about 3 tweets here from people offering what their favorite items were.
Cool.
So immediately for me, I realized it's kind of hard to define exactly what an item is. Mm-hmm. I asked my sister the other day, I was like, hey, what was your favorite item in Zelda? And she was like, Epona. I was like, well, okay. All right. Maybe.
I consider that more of a character.
I tried to basically use the rule of like, is it something you get from a dungeon or something like that? Maybe not necessarily you have to get it from a dungeon, but is it something that becomes one of these items that goes into your inventory that you can select and assign to a button, so to speak?
Yep, that's what I thought about as well.
All right, great.
Cool.
So I'm going to hand it back to you. What are we doing? How are we going to do this?
So we'll go back and forth from our least to most favorite, and then I think we'll also put these on Facebook too in case other people want to chime in.
We should do a poll. Let's do a Facebook poll.
Yes.
And then that'll run for a month or something. People can say what they're out of the ones.
Everyone
these may
will
not be
mine.
the 8 best items, but out of the ones we've picked, I want to know what our listeners' favorite ones are.
Oh, I'm sure there are going to be some that people think of that are not on either of our lists.
I tell you what, there'll be a new list, and then why don't we'll do like a quick Instagram video where we'll talk about what those are. That's going to be months from now, but.
Okay.
All right, cool.
So who goes first?
I don't know. You're hosting. Why don't I go first? So then you get the last.
No, I'm hosting and no, go ahead. This is my show.
It's like the rules in pinball. It's like it's actually better to be the second person to go than the first when you're playing 2-player pinball because you get to watch the other person play. But it seems more polite. Like when you're playing with someone, you want to be polite. You want to be like, oh, would you like to go first? But it's actually better for them to go second. Anyway.
Would you like to go first, David?
I think it'd be better for me to go second. No, I was joking. Of course. Yeah. So my first item here out of these 4.
Which is your least?
Oh, also, yeah. My first item, which would be my least favorite out of the 4, but also still favorites. Or things, I almost went more in the line of like items that I thought were also staples and important to the series that I also enjoyed.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? And I had a really hard time because truthfully, there's 3 or 4 items from Twilight Princess alone that I would have just picked.
It was hard to not pick more than one from the same game.
I did pick an item from Twilight Princess.
Uh-huh.
I think overall, on average, it's my favorite item from Twilight Princess, but there are other items that at different times I enjoyed more. So it's difficult. And those will not be incled in this list. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, this is not a be-all, end-all list, to be sure.
If we do this again in the future with other things, I don't know, NPCs or, we kind of did it with like maybe we rate water dungeons or any dungeon or different things like that. Maybe we'll change these rules a little bit, but these are the rules we'll do today.
Okay.
So the first thing I picked was from the original The Legend of Zelda. Mm-hmm. And I almost was going to pick the white tunic or the power, the white sword and stuff like that, because I remember that for me, going back and playing The Legend of Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda for the Nintendo Entertainment System, there weren't a million items to get in that game, but the tunic was really cool because it was like, oh, it actually added more defense, or the sword, you got the special sword and it gave you a little more attack power. And that was in a game where you don't really have stats. It wasn't like Link's Adventures, The Adventures of Link. it was very minimal. Your upgrades were minimal. They were all expressed through items, and it wasn't much. It wasn't like what was going on like with Dragon Quest or something back then in those days, where you're, or Final Fantasy, where you're getting all these minute little changes that are adding up to a cumulative score of your power, your strength, your defense, stuff like that. Zelda really brought it all the way down. So I really kind of wanted to go with the tunics, but I thought, I don't know if those really fit our criteria. Is it something you get from a dungeon, or is it something like that? So I chose to go with, and I'm serious about this, the boomerang. It seems like such a simple pick, but the boomerang specifically from The Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
And the reason I picked it is because when I was a kid and I would play Zelda, the first one, I never used the boomerang, and I died often, and it was horrible. When I played it as an adult, I would assign that boomerang as my second item, and you use it almost every single time you attack.
Okay.
You use the boomerang to stun, and then you move in with the sword. It's a whole thing. The boomerang can attack. You can swing it out on 8 different directions. You can do, your diagonals and everything, and it comes back to you, so you can actually use the way that it scoops back and it curves back towards you to take out other enemies.
Okay.
I picked the boomerang from the original Legend of Zelda. I think I use it all the time. I had a new appreciation for it. It's so simple. It's almost a mandatory item in that game. You get the sword, but once you do get the boomerang, even more than the arrows for me.
It sounds similar to Link's Awakening from what I've been.
So Link's Awakening has a similar thing going on there. Yeah.
The boomerang as well.
And there's a little bit of that boomerang in A Link to the Past. But after that, the boomerang changes a lot. The boomerang turns into, we've talked about this in our Foreign Dungeons episode, it becomes something that makes tornadoes. It becomes something that grabs things.
I didn't realize, and I'm, people are going to hate me for saying this because I haven't played a lot of the older Zelda games. I came in later in the game. So I didn't realize it went that far back. I didn't realize it was in like a staple of every One could argue
game. That it is the third item you ever get in Zelda history. Not chronological history, but certainly release order history.
Yeah.
It's a shield and a sword
and sword, boomerang.
And boomerang, really. I think you get it in the first dungeon in Legend of Zelda.
Interesting.
Or maybe you get it a little bit before. I think you get the bow and the boomerang in the first dungeon. It's all a little confusing. It's blurring for me a little.
Nice of them to do that for you.
So I pick boomerang. So let me write it down. I'm gonna keep a list here.
Okay. So
what did you grab? What is your first one?
Mine, because I just played Link's Awakening, which we will talk about in a different episode.
We're going to kind of review it a little bit. Sorry.
So I picked something that was, I don't know if anyone will agree with me, but it was something that was, from what I remember, kind of the first thing that made the game easier for me.
In Link's Awakening.
In Link's Awakening. It was the first thing that I came across that wasn't the sword, because I feel like, I don't know. If you picked a sword in any of the games.
I didn't pick any swords. Okay. I consider that something that is like.
It's kind of like.
You mentioned this, I think, in the Forest Dungeon episode. It's kind of like. It's part of Link.
It's,
really.
It's on your person. Yeah. Almost at all times. An iteration of a sword in one way or another.
In Link's Awakening and the original The Legend of Zelda, you get it as your first item, but you get it very quickly.
Yes. So.
I guess you get shield first in Link's Awakening, but now we're just nitpicking.
Yeah. So other than those, yes, shield.
Oh,
sword.
You also get it second from the shield in Ocarina. Anyway.
So I picked the first item that I remember that really actually helped me, which was the Pegasus boots. Because I was like, oh, now I can actually do stuff. I can jump over large holes in the ground or whatever. I can, not jump, but I can charge over them and then use the feather in addition to that. Which, by the way, the feather, I was like, do I pick the feather? But to me, that's almost less of an item, more of a function, is just jumping. So the Pegasus boots, I thought, were just kind of a cool item that I haven't played all the Zelda games, so I could be massively wrong, but have they been?
There's a little bit of a Pegasus boots mechanic in A Link to the Past, which, A Link's Awakening, from a development cycle point of view, was a spiritual sequel to Link's Awakening. And that the development, it was a slightly different development team, but they were like, we made a Super Nintendo Zelda. Could we make it on the Game Boy? It was almost started as a tech demo.
Gotcha.
In fact, I think there's, as legend would have it in the real world, there's this story about how the Link's Awakening began as just tech demos that the team was like coding on the weekends and coding in secret when they weren't working, just to try to prove that they could put a Zelda on a Game Boy. So that game pushes that system to the max. at least certainly early on in the cycles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Pegasus boots showed up in the Super Nintendo one for sure.
Okay. Because I mean, the newer Zelda games, you have boots, but it's not really the same.
You get like the hover boots.
I was gonna say the hover boots may be similar, but the Pegasus boots to me are interesting that I hadn't seen them before. I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah.
And I like the usage of them. I thought it was funny that the sound effect for them, and when you hit something, is the exact same sound effect from what I can tell as the Wario games when you rush at something and hit something. Because I have all the Wario games for Game Boy. So I just thought it was funny because I recognized some sound effects from this game from other games too.
But anyway. Yeah, sorry. That might have been the same development team. I can't quite remember if it was R&D one or not.
I mean, it's not like they had unlimited sound effects, for the Game Boy that they could use.
Well, there's like that famous thing about how Ganon's laugh in Link's Adventure is actually just a resample of one of the boxers from Punch-Out. And how technically Ganon's laugh in Ocarina is a slowed down, or rather, the ghosts that laugh in the Forest Temple in Ocarina is actually a sped up version of the laugh of Ganon.
Really?
When they go,
yeah.
It's actually his ha, 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 ha.
Oh.
It's the same sample.
That's interesting.
Kind of is. I don't think it was, I think it just did it so they could save on memory. But yeah, okay, Pegasus boots, fair enough.
Pegasus boots.
That's good.
That's mine. That was the kind of one where I picked 3 right away and I was kind of really stretching for a 4th. And I was like, I don't know, I just played this, I'll pick this one.
Yeah, that's cool. That's all right. That's fine. So my third.
Number 3.
I wonder if I'm picking like boring ones, but so I don't know. So I think in my selection here, with the exception of my final one, I picked things that I felt were important to the series and the franchise, and maybe that sometimes they were firsts.
Okay.
There might have been an item here and there. Like sometimes there was like mole claws to dig stuff in like Oracle of Ages. They're like very unique, weird. The Dominion rod is one that I can think of that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But it was like a very specific use, and that's cool too. My final one's a bit like that. But for my third, I hope this isn't boring. I think it's influential. I picked the Deku Leaf from Wind Waker.
Oh, okay.
Now, the reason I picked the Deku Leaf is it's the first time that we ever had any kind of parachute mechanic happen. And that, of course, was repeated with the sailcloth. And it is a main mechanic in Breath of the Wild now.
Oh, yes. Very much so.
And so the Deku Leaf was magic-based in Wind Waker. You used up magic to fly and stuff. And even though you and I discussed being a little frustrated with some of the wind mechanics in Wind Waker, ironically, that's hysterical. The Deku Leaf, for its parachuting abilities alone, I picked it. And you can execute that Deku Leaf anywhere. You don't need a hotspot. A lot of times you'll use it when you jump into the flowers and they shoot you up. But you can jump off of anywhere and push that action button in air, and it will trigger.
Completely, like unknown. I agree. I was not frustrated with that part of wind mechanics in general. That was really cool.
And also it started changing how these games worked. It allowed the games to become very, very vertical. The Forest Temple in Wind Waker, I said in our previous episode, is a very vertical type of dungeon. Yeah. Whereas in Ocarina, there were verticality elements, certainly, but it's a lot more lateral. And
you can use the Deku Leaf to blow wind at things, right? It's been a while since I played that one.
The Deku Leaf was the beginning of 2 mechanics, the parachute type mechanic and the blowing wind mechanic, which shows up all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Minish Cap has wind blowing. Like everybody has wind blowing now after Wind Waker, after the Deku Leaf. So I think that was a staple in the development of items for the Zelda series.
And that leaf is still in Breath of the Wild, but now you have 2 different items for, the sailing and the...
How is the leaf? The mechanic is like in Breath of the Wild. So the Deku Leaf is, you're right, it is in Breath of the Wild, but it's really just the blowing part.
It's just the blowing if you have a raft or something to get around.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. What was your third?
My third is going back to Ocarina of Time because that was like one of my favorites. And mine, I had a hard time choosing which one from Ocarina of Time.
Oh my God, I don't have anything from Ocarina in my list.
Oh my God.
I can't wait. What yours is. Okay. I'm going to guess arrows, but I can't wait.
I had a hard time choosing between the slingshot and the bow, the fairy slingshot and the fairy bow, because both were super important. Both were, the slingshot is kind of like the first non-sword weapon that you get in that game that's really cool, and you can, oh my gosh, I can hit enemies, I can hit switches, blah blah blah. Absolutely. But I ended up going with the fairy bow from Ocarina of Time.
I knew it.
Because it's more versatile than the slingshot. So the slingshot is really awesome, and I like that one a lot. But then I went with a bow because you have the different types of arrows. You can use it on horseback.
Yeah,
it was
that's
the
right.
first kind of thing that I had seen, and in terms of the different types of games that I played, I didn't play a lot of these kind of adventurous games. So I was mostly playing platformers. So to be able to use a bow and on horseback, I was like, whoa, this is amazing.
You're absolutely right. And it's also one of those items. It's one of the first items that you can kind of modify with other elements and stuff like that.
Yes. And it's very important to the entire game. So
After
I love
Ocarina, the elemental bows was a staple.
Yeah.
There's
yeah.
technically a variation of that in A Link to the Past, but it wasn't like a main mechanic. Like I think you can kind of glitch it out and push the two buttons and give yourself fire arrows and stuff like that. It's not a glitch. It's in the game.
Yeah, I think Link's Awakening, you do bomb arrows.
Yeah.
So, but
and certainly like Oracle of Ages and stuff, but that's all. Oracle of Ages is immediately after Ocarina. Actually, it was the next game to come out.
Okay.
Seasons and Ages after Ocarina. That's cool.
I mean, it gets brought into mini games where there's like a horseback archery range that you can or do not have to do.
I do remember the first time like being on Epona in Hyrule Field in Ocarina and switching to the bow view.
Yeah.
And like seeing the land still move. I'm like, Epona's still going. We didn't stop, you know?
You're like,
and you're just lining it up. It was a great feeling.
Yeah. So that was more a nostalgia pick than anything.
I just realized we're kind of picking maybe our favorites and or most important items. Like in season 3 or something, we should do like the weirdest items we've ever come across. Like that could be a different list.
Of those, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I'm realizing
the most
that
useless items.
when we were putting this list together, it was kind of like I said our favorites.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Does it mean the most obscure, or the one you had the most fun with? I kind of picked the ones I'm having the most fun with, but also the ones that were the most important. And that's okay. Then we'll definitely do a most obscure list. You know, like I said, 20 episodes from now or something.
Cool.
May I tell you what my third was? Or my second, I guess. Second favorite. Wow, that was dramatic.
What could it be?
So this is real. I'm a little embarrassed to say this. My second favorite item in any Zelda game.
Your third favorite, right?
Well, my second most favorite. Yeah, after this, it's my most favorite.
Oh, that's right.
We got our semantics all screwed up.
Sorry. I can't keep track of anything.
After this, I will speak about my favorite item. This is my second favorite. Second most is a odd way to say it. Anyway, oh God, it's the Rock's Feather from Link's Awakening. And this is real. I really put that in there.
Yeah.
And the reason I did is because it was the first time Link could jump.
I was gonna say that was I was gonna mention that it probably was, and I didn't know, but yeah, to me it was more just like like I said, a function rather than an item. But
yeah. Before that, Link, in the Legend of Zelda for NES or NES, he gets like a stepladder, which kind of is a similar function. It allows you to go over a single space, a single empty space.
Yeah.
So the Rock's Feather kind of does that, but there's other ways that the Rock's Feather gets used as well.
Yeah.
Different kind of jump mechanics and stuff. And I just remember remember playing Link's Awakening, and I was like, Link can jump? What is this, a Mario game? Link doesn't jump.
It kind of is.
Well, maybe. Well, right. Okay, we'll speak to that on the next episode. Yeah, Goombas and all that stuff.
And obviously the developers were not a fan of him jumping all the time, because that was not always something that he could do.
Because his place is an item. Yeah, right. Rock's Feather is an item. So you have a jump mechanic assigned to an item that you must assign to a button. That's true.
Oh, yeah.
It's frustrating. I get it. We'll talk about that next episode.
Yeah, there's so many things to talk about.
So I chose Rock's Feather for that reason. And really, Link never jumps proper again until Breath of the Wild. And I was fine with that.
I wonder why that is.
Well, so what Ocarina did is they when Miyamoto was when they were kind of figuring out how does this game play, one of the things that really changed the tide in the development of Ocarina for Nintendo 64 was they realized, let's have a lot of things be context sensitive. Let's have Link's little character, there's code running in front of him that reads where these polygons start and stop. And if someone just runs off the edge of a thing, it just knows to jump.
Yeah.
He realized, all right, for Mario, we need to put a jump button on there. For The Legend of Zelda, we don't need that. He'll just, the user just knows, if I run off this, I'll jump at a certain speed. If I want to climb down. I'll just walk at it. Because also they were
Right.
starting to use the analog stick in more ways. There's, 180 different input sensitivities on that or whatever. Maybe it's 72. It depends on what mode you're using. So they realized they could assign that to different intensities on the analog stick. That's also shown in the context-sensitive A button for Legend of Zelda in Nintendo 64. Like how that button, that's the first time we really saw Nintendo do a thing where the buttons use would change depending on where you were.
Yeah.
Climb up something, don't climb up something, grab something, pull
Open a
something.
door.
Yeah, the button would change. So the jump mechanic became a context-sensitive situation through the entire series. I think the jump might have returned in Ages and Seasons, but those are really just sequels to Link's Awakening and from a development point of view.
Gotcha.
Anyway,
Well, sorry I hated on your feather.
I know it's kind of funny. As you were talking about
I was
Pegasus
like,
boots,
yeah,
I was
feather.
like, hey, Rax Feather's coming up next.
And then I crushed your dreams by saying it wasn't important.
I'll stick up for it.
It's important.
I'll stick up for it. Okay, Fisher.
Yeah.
What is your second most favorite item?
Okay, my second most.
We're just cruising here. We're moving right
Favorite.
along. But
I
I'm
know.
fine with this. I'm fine with
They're
it.
fun to talk about. Maybe we'll have more to talk about with our favorite ones. We'll see. But second most favorite was something I used constantly in Breath of the Wild.
Whoa!
All the time in many different situations, which would be the remote bomb is my second most
Fair
favorite.
enough.
Obviously, bombs have been in, from what I can tell, every Zelda game. They're important to every single one.
They were a major mechanic for secrets in the very first one.
Okay. So, I mean, they've been around, but this was so unique in that they were unlimited. Thank God for that, because
it was smart to do
there were
that.
so many other things to collect in Breath of the Wild that bombs, I did not need bombs to be yet another one
Imagine
of them.
the worst case of that would have been like you collect 5 different ingredients and then you have to cook them to make a gunpowder.
Oh, no.
And then like go talk to a shop owner who
Oh,
will
no,
encase them for
Oh,
you.
no.
That would be not the greatest.
My opinions episode of Breath of the Wild would have been vastly different had that been the case, because ain't nobody got time for that. So I love that they were unlimited. I love that they were, and I don't know if I wasn't sure if you wanted me to break it down even further and pick the round one or the square
Go for
one.
it.
So
Yeah.
I picked the round one just because of the physics.
Wow, because they roll.
Because they roll.
I find myself sometimes using the square one more because I want to play something specifically.
Sure.
But
I did that
when
too.
you use the round ones, it's for a really good reason.
Yes. And I mean, I was using them obviously to blow up rocks, to blow up
battle
enemies
for 10 minutes at a time.
Battle enemies for
I'm just
10
going to stay
minutes.
up on this cliff and slowly nick away at this
Why
enemy.
not? It's not like I'm going to run out. If I shoot him with arrows, I'm going to run out of arrows.
I've done it. I've been on top of a moblin camp or something, and I'm just throwing them in.
Yeah, and it's so funny because they're like, "Huh? What is this thing?"
Yeah,
and they go
they're
check it out.
They're really curious
inquisitive.
every time.
Yeah, and you're like, "You dummies! I'm going to blow you up using this."
Oh my god! Nice.
And then you just keep doing it. So I used it so much on so many things. I found it incredibly useful. I wasn't sure if we could think of the other abilities as items.
So it's tricky in Breath of the
semantics,
Wild.
right?
I would say that the bombs. Okay, I totally approve, and I think this is totally acceptable to have the bombs.
Thank you so much. Your approval means a lot to me.
Cool. No, but what I mean is, I agree that a bomb is an item. I would argue, but I don't think that I would do that in this episode, but I would argue that the bombs are actually expressed as abilities in Breath of the Wild.
That's true.
But it's okay, because they kind of come out of Magic Land. It's like,
But they're a physical object that you manipulate,
gray space. It's
as
gray space.
opposed to the other
As
runes,
opposed to
which are like magnesis.
Wait, you mean as
where you can-
opposed? Well, yeah, magnesis.
'cause that's like
I was gonna say as opposed to like the ice that you physically manipulate.
I wouldn't say that's an item.
So do you know what? In a different game, in Twilight Princess or who cares, any other old Zelda game, that would have been like a rod. It would have been like the ice rod, and you'd go
Right.
and shoot it, and then the ice would.
Right. So, the remote bomb is kind of the opposite of what we've been previously talking about,
Yeah.
in that it's definitely not the first iteration. It's the most recent one, but it just changed enough.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Where it was different. Like, I love using bombs in all the games, and it's kind of, you come across this wall that you definitely can blow up with a bomb. It's very obvious. That's what you're going to use that for. But Breath of the Wild, you could use it for so many other things.
Yes.
That's why I liked it so much.
You know what? That's an excellent point. I think I use bombs to blow up walls probably That's probably the least amount that I use bombs for.
Same with
And
me.
you ever done the stuff where you like connect the Octorot gut to the bomb? You can make it float over things. And then you hit the balloon with your arrow and you can make it drop.
No.
You can bomb camps.
See, I didn't even know.
So this is what you do. You take your bomb, then you take Moblin guts, you attach them to the bomb, you equip your Deku leaf, you blow it over a camp, and then you use your arrows to pop the balloon, and the bomb falls exactly where you need it to fall.
So complicated.
But it's fun.
Yeah. So that's the reason it was it's kind of the thing that I thought of first.
Wow.
But it wasn't necessarily my favorite, but I was like, gosh, I mean, especially because I've been playing the game recently. I'm just like, I use it so much and I found it so helpful.
So I just realized that maybe I could have put a different one in here. So I'm gonna use it as an honorable mention. The hook shot in Ocarina was kind of a game changer as well.
Sure.
It changed how you played the game once you got it.
Oh yeah.
And maybe that could have. That's like in line with a lot of these rock feathers. I'm going to offer that as an honorable mention because it lines up with my number one, which I can't believe it. This leans a little more towards weird than maybe influential.
Okay.
One of my favorite items from Twilight Princess, and I've joked about this in previous episodes, is the double hook shot. I've even made a joke like, I felt like I was Spider-Man, you know? I almost made that be my number one. It was between the double hook shot and what I'm about to say.
Okay.
I ended up choosing to have it not be the double hook shot because I was really thinking about the double hook shot and I thought to myself, man, it was really fun, but there's another, there is a world where the double hook shot's not necessary. A lot of times the double hook shot could have easily been hook shot to a platform.
Yeah.
But they just designed the levels where these hooks are on the edges of a wall, so then Link's just grabbing on.
Mm-hmm.
But like if that was expressed in Ocarina, it would have been you hook shot and then a little ledge and then you hook shot. It could have easily been, I don't know if the double part of the hook shot was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
It was necessary because the levels were designed to make it be necessary.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, one thing that really changed the game in Twilight Princess for me, can you guess what it is?
I don't know.
The spinner.
Oh.
I chose the spinner as my favorite Zelda item ever. And I think I'm going to stand by this.
Very unusual.
So the spinner's awesome. And this is why.
Do tell.
I remember when you first get it, you're kind of like, what the heck am I going to use this for? You know? And you can use it to float over sand and quicksand. So that it's like a little skateboard in that sense. But it was so fun to connect to those tracks along the walls and just take off at high speed. It made that noise.
Made me very anxious.
Oh, really? No, it was
so
exhilarating.
fast.
It was exhilarating and fun. I would sometimes just ride them for the heck of it.
Sure.
You know? But then what was cool is all of a sudden, when you didn't know it, you saw these paths, I guess you could say, these wall paths all over the place. Certainly in the dungeon where you are exposed the spinner, where you find the spinner, which is maybe the desert dungeon. But you even see some of those paths in the overworld, but you don't even know they're paths.
I guess I didn't even think of that. Yeah.
So, because you can take the spinner all over the place in Hyrule Field and you can find extra secrets and stuff. So all of a sudden it was one of those first items, not one of those firsts. It was another item in the Zelda lineage where, okay, so like, what can a hookshot do? That changes the game a little bit. What can an arrow do? That changes the game a little bit. Arrows / slingshots allow you to hit things you can't hit with your sword. Hookshot allows you to go to a place you can't jump to. Honestly, I gotta say, the way the spinner was handled, I think it did the same thing. It wasn't just a key. It wasn't just a fancy key like the Gale Boomerang.
Also was like, it was a switch in a way.
So sometimes it was a literal key, and that was the most boring version of the spinner. Like, that was so unnecessary.
You didn't like the animation of him like squatting 15 times? I love that part.
No,
but
and maybe it's just because
I'm easily amused.
Maybe it's because the 12-year-old boy in me loves tracks, and I just love like hitting that track and going around.
Yeah.
And it does kind of open up
Link's roller coaster.
Link's roller coaster. Oh man, it's so fun. And it did force you to start looking at the temple differently. Like, oh my gosh, wait, I could go there. I could go there. I could go there. And then there were times I'm on Epona and I was like, wait, I see a track. And you get on it. And then what was cool is one could argue that it's not particularly active. It's like, well, you just get on the track and it takes you to a place. But that's not true.
No, you can jump and separate.
They use the jump mechanic,
yeah.
which is so smart. So it's still engaging.
I did like that boss a lot that you had to use.
So
You
I'm
did
so
not?
glad you said that because that's where I was going to finish this with. That was going to be my final
Sorry, jumping
thing.
the gun.
No, I'm so happy you thought about
But
it.
it was such a unique boss. It wasn't
Yeah.
hit him with an arrow and then slash with a sword. Like
So
you had to-
the spinner was fun. It's fine. But the reason I ultimately chose the spinner over the double hook shot for Twilight Princess was because of that boss battle.
yeah.
It was, I'm almost thinking they designed that boss battle first and then said, oh, let's use this spinner other parts
Sure.
of the game.
Yeah.
But that boss battle is epic. And that's a version where it is cinematic in game still.
Yes,
We're
yes.
not going to a cutscene.
That's true.
You're jumping back and forth. It's engaging. You're not spamming a button. You're not just
Yeah,
pushing
you
a
have to
button.
time that right.
You're timing
'Cause
it.
You could fall on the ground and have to
I would
ride it
argue
up.
it's technically a Mario game on its side.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean?
I could see that.
A little bit. Where you're timing your jumps to go back and forth, and then you have to
Mm-hmm.
do other executions and your action with shooting, swinging your sword and stuff at the big old skull thing,
Yeah.
and it's the music swells and it feels never ending. You're really just spinning around in a circle,
Mm-hmm.
but man, that thing's cool.
It is.
It reminds me of I don't even know, so many different things in different games and movies. So that was really fun. It was an awesome way to use that spinner. The spinner is its weakest when it's just a stupid key. It's most fun.
But it usually makes cool things happen when you're using it as a key. Like there
Yeah.
are cool animations involved, or you're making something gigantic come out of the ground. So
My
it's
favorite
kinda
thing with the
neat.
spinner was that it allowed me to look after the temple and all of that highlight. I still used it as an accessory when I would find new tracks.
See, I would not have done that, and I don't remember seeing any of those.
There's tracks all over Hyrule Field.
I don't remember seeing any because,
Ooh.
like we talked about in the last episode, I don't play games that way. I'm like, what do I have to do next? So I would never even have noticed.
So with the way I often play is like, I have to do that next. Oh man, can't I go over here for a while?
and the opposite.
That's
We
interesting.
should never play a video game together.
That's interesting. Well, and I've observed you watching Bill play Breath of the Wild.
Like,
And-
why are you running around right
And
now?
he
You
plays
have
around
stuff
a lot
to do. Yeah.
as well, which is really fun.
Yeah.
And I've seen you get a little stressed, be like, go that way.
Why are you just running around right now? Stop shooting all the animals. This is not Oregon Trail. You have somewhere to go.
So I'm standing by it. I think all things considered, I'm gonna pick the spinner as my favorite item out of any Zelda game ever. There are other
Wow.
items that might have little highlights that were more fun for a certain reason,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately, I think the spinner is an important one to point out, and it's a little weird, and it is a bit of a game
It's
changer.
unique.
Yeah,
That's what's cool about it.
it does put another filter onto Hyrule Field once you realize that those tracks might be a thing.
Sure.
So, what's your favorite? This is
Well,
it.
now I feel stupid.
Oh no!
I crapped on your Rock's Feather and you crapped on my double hook shot.
Dang! No, I'm so pleased that these are our top two.
It's my double hook shot. Yeah, that's
Oh, I'm so happy. Is that the one you thought we were going to have together?
That's one I thought we were going to pick because I've heard you talk about
Because
it
I was
before.
it was the double hook shot. It was like,
Yeah.
but I was remembering the spinner, and actually, I couldn't be happier that our top two are double hook shot and
Oh,
spinner.
weird. We picked two from Twilight Princess. Who would have thought?
So I actually there's a lot of wacky, kooky items in other games, but Twilight Princess did a wonderful job
Yeah.
with new items.
That's probably another reason why I like that game,
Mhm.
as if there weren't enough already. But yeah, the double hookshot was a plus on something that you had seen before. I was like, now I have two.
Yeah.
Which I agree with you. And
And pardon me, I wasn't crapping on them. I
Oh, no.
was like, they were awesome. But when I had to like really black and white it and put these two items next to each other.
Sure. No, I totally understand your reasoning for the spinner. And I agree that I do wish there were more instances that you could use the double hook shot. But to me, that was just so fascinating. And like the whole, okay, I have to lower myself a certain amount, and then
That's true.
And then I can get another place. Like I had to lower myself to get through a hole in the wall. And
Yeah.
it brought a whole different like element to it that the one hook shot. And I remember replaying Twilight Princess recently, and I was like, I can only do so much with this one thing. I know I'm going to get another one later, but this is, I
Yeah.
want to play with both of them right now.
No, you're absolutely right. That altitude changer, I kind of forgot about that just a little bit. That is awesome. It reminds me a little bit of the grappling hook in Wind Waker and stuff. How once you latch, you
Yeah.
can still climb up and down a little.
Yep.
You cannot swing with the double hook
You
shot, but you
cannot
don't
swing.
But you don't need to.
Yeah. So that's why that's my favorite. I don't know. To me, it's just like classic, awesome.
It definitely
Different-
So yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. That altitude change does actually make it more than a single hook shot. You're right.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to do that with the single one. I was like, why can't I do the thing that I
go
know
up and
I can
down?
do later? I know I can use this later. So it was so cool the first time playing that game to come across that and be like, what more can I do? This is so fascinating to me. Like, why hadn't they done this before? You know?
Yeah, I agree. So we did not get any doubles. Right now, our list is at.
And I thought we would.
If we give, I mean, I kind of thought we were gonna too.
Yeah.
Right now, we have on our list of 8 the double hook shot, the spinner, remote bombs, Rock's feather, fairy bow, Deku leaf, Pegasus boots, and boomerang. Some of these sound kind of normal, but like I think they were influential and important. This is the list I think we're going to put on our Facebook page, but I have some honorable mentions here. May I bring them up?
Let's talk about those.
Oh, real quick, too, before I get into our honorable mentions, we had another comment on our YouTube page from Dan Schmuel, and he sent us a wonderful message, really cool. I'll read other parts of it, I think, on other episodes. I mean, it's literally like 2 paragraphs here, which is super cool. Dan, thanks for the support. He mentions that, well, I'll read the first sentence here. He says, "Hey, guys, love the first 2 podcasts. I've been looking for a good Zelda podcast and tried a few on for size, but have liked your episodes the best. Taking deeper dives into specific parts, themes, and dungeons works well for where I'm at with the series." Maybe I am just going to read this. "You might say I've been a little bit reborn on Zelda recently. I've played Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask right when they came out, blah, 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 da, 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 da. But basically he goes on to say that Breath of the Wild has like reawakened.
Sure.
And now he's going back and playing other games. So
Awesome.
It's very similar to experience you and I are having,
absolutely.
where we're reminiscing about other games and it's a bigger thing. But he does mention here in a second paragraph, and Dan, thanks again for the support and the love, and this is really cool. He does say, though, "I have to say that I'm with you guys on Twilight Princess. Having just finished it for the first time, that game is freaking great!"
Oh, I wish I had
point.
just played it for the first time.
"Almost every dungeon will be at the top of my favorite dungeons in the series list, and I thought the story was super cool." I agree with
Absolutely.
that. I agree.
Totally different.
That is a polar opposite from the story in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
The bosses and items were also really great, mostly. Well, I can't help but think about the spinner boss. Does the double hook shot, is that used in a boss battle? It's more about navigation through that.
Oh, this is the quiz.
You also use it when you go up into the sky, and that's
Yes.
so scary because even though it's like the same mechanic, it's just air below you.
I know.
And he goes on to say a few more things, and perhaps, Dan, I'll mention some of these other things in future episodes. Thank you very much. Again, you can always reply to us on our YouTube page. You can leave a comment on our episodes or tweet us at TechnophileSpod if you have anything to say, which leads me to some tweets we got about these items, Kate.
Cool. Let's hear 'em.
Sorry, I'm going a little hoarse here. So I put out just a quick tweet asking people what their favorite items were, and I hashtag Zelda in there, and I got some replies, and I actually did reach out to Meg Boney, on her actual Twitter account. She's an author of a book called Everly, and it's like a fantasy book that just came out. She's writing the sequel right now. I found out on her website, which is really neat. But she was an early liker of our show, frankly.
Awesome.
And she will from time to time retweet our tweets. So thank you very much, Meg. That's awesome. You can find her at Meg Bonnie. I think it's Bonnie. Let me know. Meg Bonnie Writer. I'll spell it at MEGBONNEYWRITER. Does Bonnie seem right?
I think so.
Meg Bonnie Writer. So you can check her out and even maybe take a look at her book. It's been doing well on Amazon and all that, which is super cool. So Meg says, she replied and said, Princess Zelda's sword. I love that her use of weapons really let her transition from damsel in distress to a fierce protector of her kingdom. Now, that's Princess Zelda's sword from Twilight Princess.
Uh-huh.
And do you have anything to say about that? I honestly, when I first read it, I was kind of like, wait, when does that happen?
Yeah.
I had to remember a little.
That's the thought I literally just had inside my head.
Like, it's not an item you get in a dungeon.
Right.
But maybe it is, you get it right at the end there.
I mean, I agree with her reasoning totally. I just, I guess I wouldn't have thought of that.
So
but yeah.
Zelda's sword. And then we had a couple other people grabbed off of that. Lauren Luddington, who goes by at Sassy Gayjo, at SASSYGAYGO, J-O, pardon me. She replied real quick to this tweet and just said, the Master Sword. Okay, fair enough.
Very important, obviously.
Lauren, thank you very much. The Master Sword, I'm putting it on the list.
I totally understand why that would be a pick.
because the Master Sword plays, and it always is a little difficult to get, and there's always a reason how you get it.
Yeah, and maybe that's
why.
your reasoning behind it, because it's not just given to you. It's not just the wooden sword that you start out with. It's like really the item that now you can start really kicking butt with.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and now we have another tweet here from Aaron Nepp. He goes by @Neppy18, and I'll spell it real quick, @KNEPPY18. @Neppy18, he points out, as you and I failed to point out in this episode so far, even though certainly he tweeted this before we recorded this, he said, the introduction of the hook shot in A Link to the Past was amazing when I first saw it. And it's right, I remember now that the hook shot was not originally brought to the universe in Ocarina. It was Link to the Past. You could shoot it out at things on a 2-dimensional plane.
Yeah.
And it would pull you across.
It's in Link's Awakening too.
It is indeed.
Which, that was...
Which even that predates Ocarina, of course.
Yeah, and...
Fascinating.
So double claw shot, hook shot, whatever.
Right.
Goes by both names. Is kind of like the remote bomb simile, where it's like it's one of the more recent versions, which I agree. The first
that iteration
introduction of it was amazing, but this was just kind the coolest version.
I agree. It's definitely like a 2. If it was a software release, it's definitely 2.0, not a 1.8.2.
It's literally 2.0 because you have to.
There we go. I'll go with it. Aaron, that's awesome. Oh, and he does go on to say also the light bow or arrows introduced in the original game. Fascinating.
See, I'm the weirdo that hasn't played.
Well, we don't mind saying this.
Few.
We're a fan podcast. We're not an expert podcast of The Legend of Zelda.
I will never admit to being an expert.
Right. But that's what's fun, is just talking with people about this stuff and having people tweet us and put in their 2 cents, because that's what, like, playing The Legend of Zelda, the original The Legend of Zelda, Miyamoto has said this in interviews. The whole point to putting secrets in that game was so that people would go back to work, so to speak, and around the water cooler, so to speak, would say, like, did you know that if you bomb this part, you can do that? And he wanted people to talk about the game outside of playing the game.
Nice.
Which is something that you do less with, like, some of the original Mario games. There are some secrets that people chat about, but for the most part, he wanted this to be a game that people talked about. And I
think that through this podcast, I will end up going back and playing those early games, either because I have to, because we're going to talk about
some
it,
review or something,
or because people have been commenting on it, and I feel the need to go back and do that.
That is cool. You were introduced to the series with Ocarina, because it hit you at the right age, and that's wonderful. That game was that for many people, which is awesome. Yeah. I hit it just one game before that, which was Link's Awakening.
Okay. Yeah.
So my first real 3D game was, of course, Ocarina. Like the first, well, I guess it was everyone's first 3D, but you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah.
I had not played the Super Nintendo one, or really either of the Nintendo ones, to any real degree.
Yeah, I had no idea of the story of nothing. I just went into Ocarina of Time like, oh, this game seems cool. Like, I knew nothing about it. And
did you kind of know Zelda existed as a friend? Did you know it was a Nintendo property and stuff, or was it just like, let's try this thing?
I honestly don't remember. It might just have been like, I've heard of the game, or like I know it's a popular game, so I'm going to try it out. And
I'm only a couple years older than you, but for me, Ocarina hit when I was just getting into high school. Mm-hmm. So people were already very excited about that game coming out. We were old enough that it was being talked about. Did you hear the 4th Zelda is happening? All that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I was not part of that conversation.
I guess it'd be the 5th Zelda, but yeah. Right. Sorry. Mm-hmm.
No, so I just went into it not knowing anything.
That's super cool.
I'm so glad I did, though, because
it's awesome.
I wouldn't be here.
All right, so we've got the hook shot. I don't know. Maybe we'll make a list of 10. I think the Master Sword, that's really great. But Lauren, with respect, I don't know, because Zelda's sword is tricky too. You don't get it but I don't know. Anyway, Meg, that's really great. Well, we'll do a list of, let's throw them in there. Let's just have it for fun. We'll do a list of 11. I don't even know if you can make 11 we'll
figure it out.
As a quiz on Facebook. The double hook shot, the spinner, remote bombs, Rock's Feather, Fairy Bow, Deku Leaf, Pegasus Boots, Boomerang, Zelda's sword, the Master Sword, which was kind of just a quick reply to Meg, I think. Yeah. And then the original hook shot. These are all great choices.
If there's if there are enough spaces, maybe we put other.
Maybe we throw an other in there. But how about this? Ideas? Let's do this instead. We'll build this. That'll be fun. Mm-hmm. But from here on out, maybe we'll do this half a year from now. Maybe we'll do this a year from now. From here on out, if you're hearing this episode, even if you're listening to it months after it comes out, tweet us at Another Zelda Pod about the weirdest item that you can think of that's in a Zelda game, and we'll build a list and talk about it. How about that?
Oh, yeah.
Sound good? Mm-hmm. So once we get 8 to 10 weirdest items built up, we'll do an episode. Sound
Cool.
good?
Yes.
Kate? I accidentally took over the show.
Oh, no.
I'm so sorry.
You're used to this. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's your gig. I totally understand.
How do you feel about this list? And then take us away. Take us home.
I liked it. I liked this idea for the show in general because it was something kind of just like objective where I could pick some stuff. Made me remember awesome moments in games that while playing, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So that was cool to kind of reflect back on. And I look forward to maybe more of these types of lists.
I know. I wonder what other kind of lists we could build.
We'll think of some.
Our listeners, we'll think of plenty, but you're also welcome to tweet us and Facebook message us or YouTube message us ideas for lists that you might want to hear about as well.
Favorite armor clothing item in Breath of the Wild.
Just Breath of the Wild alone, that'd be a whole episode.
There are lots of clothing items.
A whole list, yeah. Interesting.
We'll think of some.
Super cool. Okay, this was really fun.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here.
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram by searching Raptor Paint.
And I can be found on Instagram because I'm too lame for Twitter at I only take cat pics.
But she also takes regular pics.
I also take other pics. It's
Non-cat
either like
pics.
my cat or a treadmill. That seems to be the general.
Well, but you've
theme.
been doing some kind of exercise binge lately where you're like training for a run or something.
I'm really not. It's more just to prove that I walk and run and am active one day a week.
Well, that's good.
It's keeping me accountable if I take a picture of it. So my Instagram is basically cat picture, treadmill, cat picture, treadmill, cat picture, cat picture, cat picture, treadmill. So yeah, it's really, really good.
I want a picture of the cat on the treadmill.
Ooh, I think they'd frown upon that at Experience Fitness.
Oh, right, because it's not a treadmill here, of course, at your place. Fair
I
enough.
don't think they would allow Milo to be in the gym.
Awesome, Kate.
We'll see.
I'll do our outro for all the connections for the show. How about that? Is that all right?
Do that. You're good.
Someday
at that.
I'll write this all down so you can say it as well.
Nah,
but
that's
people,
fine.
if you do have comments, I've been saying it a lot this episode, but if you have anything you want to say, comments about, if you have agree or disagree with some of the things we've picked, or you have ideas for other items that were awesome, you can tweet us at Another Zelda Pod, or if you're listening to this on YouTube, just throw something down in the comments right now. If this is a link on Facebook that's going to our website, you can actually technically even leave comments on our website. Please do. There it is.
You did it.
Go to our actual website, which is anotherzeldapodcast.com. Kate, we're coming back in 2 weeks to review ? A Link's Awakening.
Talk about, discuss.
Yeah. We're gonna.
Yeah.
It might
Not
be
really
more just like an
review.
opinions.
Yes.
Well, yeah. Because there's a lot of shows out there that review stuff. We can just talk about our experience with a specific game.
We're going to talk about a 31-year-old trying to play a really old Game Boy game.
Awesome.
For the first time.
I love it.
Having her troubles at it. So.
Whoa, really?
Well, I mean,
we'll find out.
It's weird to go back and play an old Game Boy game, but we'll
I guess.
discuss.
I don't know. I go back and play Game Boy games all the time, but I
Okay,
guess
well,
I'm just
I'm not good at video games.
cooler than you.
Well,
No, I have
obviously.
something to say about that when we record that episode because I often play my game. I don't know if I could go back and just play them on a Game Boy. I often put them up on the Game Boy Player, which is a lot more
that
conducive.
has to do with it. Yeah.
To like,
it's a factor.
because I think you played it on a non-lit SP.
I did.
Which that's
I needed
stressful.
a lamp near me at all times.
Yeah, that sounds not cool. We'll talk about it on the next episode.
Sounds good.
Until then, Kate, I'll see you around.
Okay, bye.